Yeah, yes. They're all upside down there.
I think they're on the table. On the table on the far end.
Do you have apologies from Sam Bateman? No. Did you know? Who do I tell? Do I tell Lauren or David?
It's all right. We need to add apologies from Sam Bateman. Okay.
Please stand. Chairman and Vice Chairman.
Good evening and welcome. Happy to go through my usual mantra. Please note the location for microphones. Please note the location of the right. Just a note, fire exits, just so that I don't think there's a drill tonight, but should there be anything that sounds like a fire alarm, please make yourself available to go out those exits. Mobile phones and other devices, please make sure they're on. The meeting obviously is being live streamed and there is an audio recording being made. So please switch your microphone on and speak clearly when addressing the council. But obviously we now remain seated, so don't worry about it. Can I just say that, just to remind you, if you could talk to the committee, would be appreciated. Thank you for that, because I don't think sure we're in subject, so that actually we keep the meeting moving. Prayers will be taken by the Reverend Jones from Connecting Southwater Community Church.
Thank you for the invitation to be here and bring you greetings from my own church, Connect Southwater, and all the churches together. Later, so I can't stay. And I think now you can hear me. We come tonight to bring prayer for this council and all the communities that you represent, and it is an honour and a privilege to lead us in prayer. So let us pray. Almighty God, we come before you this evening to bring our prayers for this council and for all the communities represented here. Before the work of this evening begins, we are reminded to take this moment to stop and acknowledge that you are a good God and all good things come from you. May your kingdom come and your will be done. We give thanks for the gifts and the calling of leadership and service. And as we pray to the staff and members of Horsham District Council, we pray also for all who step up to public service in whatever capacity. We thank you for the willingness of so many people to make the well-being of our communities the focus of their lives, often at great personal cost. So we thank you for all who work here in this place, and we ask that you would help them to serve with a shared commitment to truth, to goodness and justice. God of truth and reconciliation, we ask that you would give our councillors wisdom and skill in navigating the conflicting demands and opinions which surround them. Grant them courage both to stand up for their convictions and to change their positions when convicted to do so, regardless of whatever pressures they may feel. In disagreement, may there be respect and a willingness to listen. In decision-making, may there be integrity and transparency. And may all the dealings of this council be marked by truth, justice and compassion. Lighten their evening together with moments of grace and humour, and grant them the gift of kindness toward one another as they work together for all the people of Horsham. Finally, Father of all people, we meet tonight with heavy hearts as we see the results of human hatred and anger work in the world. We see so many places where differences between people result in conflict which demonizes the other, rages and kills. So as we continue to pray as a community for Ukraine and Russia and all places of violent conflict, we take a moment now to hold the people of Israel and Gaza and the whole Middle East before you. God of all people, source of all peace, help us to see ourselves and each other as those who have also been made and purposed by you. Grant us peaceful hearts as we give you now this meeting, and ask that in all things your way of peace will prevail. We bring these our prayers in the name of Jesus and by the power of his Spirit. Amen.
Please be seated. Good. Apologies for absence. Michael Eastwood, Len Ellis Brown, Warwick Hallowell, Mike Wood, Martin Goffey. Is there anybody? And Councillor Sunday. Yeah. Tracy. Yeah. Thank you very much. I move the minutes of the meeting of the council held on the 6th of September be approved as a correct record. Do you have some? Thank you very much. Does anyone wish to comment on the accuracy of the minutes? If not, are you all agreed that I may sign the minutes as correct? Agreed. Yeah. Receive any declarations of interest from members? Does any member have an interest to declare in respect of any item on tonight's agenda? Yes.
Yes, can I a declaration of interest in the report to the Sussex County Council?
Is there anybody else? brings us round to announcements. I have just one announcement to say that the civic service on Sunday went extremely well. We had a good number of volunteers, parish clerks, parish councillors, and others, and I think it was a satisfactory evening. We met together. We've had comments from the sheriff and the deputy lieutenant expressing how much they enjoyed being there, meeting people of the district. So those who attended, thank you very much indeed. Leaders' announcements. Obviously, Martin Bobby is not here, so it's the middle.
Thank you, Chair. I'm delighted to announce the appointment of Councillor Nick Grant as Deputy to the Cabinet Member for Environmental Health, Recycling and Waste, Jane Mercer. Congratulations, Nick.
Cabinet members' announcements. I'll start with that.
One announcement, which is that the cost of living crisis is a key and central part of the local residents. We know it's hitting people really hard. It's also been affecting people who've never supported struggle before, which is particularly going up very high. I've previously acknowledged that the work undertaken by previous administrations to fund initiatives to support this crisis has been excellent. Even if it did need a little nudge from us in the position. But even so, it means that we've been able to do a lot of support with the additional funding that was taking place this year. But I still think there's more that we need to do. And I think to better understand and address the needs of our community, we need to find out exactly what those needs are. And I'm delighted, therefore, the 2nd of November, we'll be hosting a cost of living summit where we'll meet with partners and other stakeholders to develop a common picture the state of cost of living crisis in Horsham district, to identify what needs to be done, and importantly to understand what barriers there are that may be impacting on our progress to support people. I will report back to future meetings of the learnings from the summit, and this will also help inform our work in the next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have a
Thank you, Chairman. Ahead of the October half term, I'm delighted to be able to share some of the fun, affordable activities that will be on offer for families. At Southwater Country Park, we'll be hosting a free Day of the Dinosaurs event, where children will be able to meet dinosaur characters, participate in arts and crafts and activities, and of course enjoy the Dino Discovery Trail that's always there. Horsham Museum will be running more craft sessions, which always prove popular, and there will be some wizard and witch themed craft activities at Horsham Park Fun. Warnham Lake Local Nature Reserve will be giving the opportunity for children to come and meet some reptiles. On top of that, the Capitol will be showing the Paw Patrol movie, like my children. Other films are available, and there will also be Starkitect, a dance and circus fusion. And if that's not enough, at the Horsham Youth Centre, there will be DJ skills sessions. We know the cost of living is hitting families and hope that these free and low-cost events will continue to allow people to enjoy themselves in our district. Thank you.
Just two things. The taxis that many of us in the Horsham area are of our concern. And as the licensing authority, we have a duty to ensure that the vehicles and drivers are as safe as possible. I'm pleased to announce that we are introducing improved health check arrangements for taxi drivers. All drivers will be required to have their annual health check reviewed by an independent doctor. We've undertaken a procurement exercise to achieve best value, and the costs will be met by the drivers themselves. We'll also be undertaking 6-month vehicle safety checks at the depot, again, to provide added reassurance about the vehicles. And secondly, I'm also hopeful that in the coming months, there'll be some positive news about a new app that people will be able to use to find out what can be recycled and where, and also to remind us of when bin day is, so we don't have to rely on our neighbours or what I do, which is go out and look at what kind of bin my neighbours put out. And for those of us in rural areas, to try and guess what week it is. I'll have more news in the coming months, but I wanted to give you a little teaser about something I know many in our community have been asking for some time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Chair. Last week I chaired a meeting of the Wildlife Horsham District Partnership. I was delighted to hear about the impact that this unique collaboration with Sussex Wildlife Trust is having. The initiative is delivering real improvements to biodiversity in the Horsham District. I was particularly impressed with the work that has led to an increase in the number of lapwings, swifts and nightingales in my district. A few specific highlights have been supporting landowners to protect and sustain breeding habitats, establishing more naturalistic grazing, connecting habitats and introducing flood management measures. Wildlife Horsham District has also worked with parish councils and community groups through workshops, site visits, wildlife talks, habitat management guidance, and more. And particularly importantly, the number of volunteer hours has continued to grow. We know that volunteering has a huge range of benefits for the volunteers themselves in terms of mental and physical health. So it is fantastic and we're creating opportunities. Secondly, I want to take this chance to remind businesses through council that there are still 2 days left for them to participate in our business consultation regarding the climate action strategy. Businesses will be vital to Horsham District being carbon neutral by 2050. And so it is key to understand not only what they're doing at the moment, but also what they would like to do and what might be preventing the uptake of those actions. I would also like to thank every business person and resident who has participated in the consultation over the summer and early autumn. Their contribution will be valuable when we are finalising the strategy. We are working to bring this to council, to cabinet in January. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Chief Executive. Item 5 is questions from the public. We have no questions from the public received. And therefore that brings us on to item 6, which is recommendations from Cabinet, which are on pages 17 to 20 in the agenda. And page 17, the Council Plan 23-27, the Annual Plan 23-24, and the resources. I invite Councillor John Milne, Deputy Leader of the Council, to present this item and make the recommendation.
Thank you, Chairman. Tonight, I am proud to introduce the new Council Plan 2023 to 37 as fresh vision for Horsham District. We all share a passion to make our district better, ensuring it continues to be one where we support our residents, encourage our businesses, and welcome visitors. However, like so many communities up and down the country, what is less clear is whether it is yet a great place to live for everyone, young or old, wealthy or less well off, the vulnerable, and those from disadvantaged groups. This is something we are keen to address and make sure Horsham District is a place for all. The Council Plan sets out our shared vision for the next 4 years, a fresh vision, grounded in the recent Liberal Democrat local election manifesto, but responding to the needs and desires of residents across the district. Our longer term aims are grouped under 4 main themes: supporting people and communities, inspiring greener futures, building a thriving economy, always listening, learning and improving. Encompassed by this last theme, tonight I present not only a new council plan, but a new red plan. Accompanying the council plan is the annual plan, the remainder of this council year 2023-24. The annual plan takes our broad aims and ambitions for the council plan and translates those into achievable actions, goals and targets for each year. These are listed as work streams and projects for officers to focus on. Annual planning alongside our annual budget will allow us to be a more agile and flexible council. This is important because we have seen how unforeseen events can derail council planning, from the pandemic towards neutrality, the ongoing cost of living crisis, as well as the impacts of unexpected changes. We will continue to have and deliver longer term ambitions and projects. But by combining annual planning and annual budget setting, we can be more open, transparent and accountable to residents each year as we update them on progress and outline next steps. The proposed council plan and annual plan is available for all members to read. In particular, I would like to highlight our themes of supporting people and communities and inspiring greener futures. Because whilst the UK government now seem to hold the view that these goals conflict with each other, we believe that they are in fact complementary. We will continue to approach them as such, rather than ducking our responsibilities or leaving them for the next administration or generation to deal with. In addition to seeking approval of the council plan today, there are two service areas, property and project management, where the chief executive has advised me that the current staffing requirement is holding up progress on existing projects in the capital program and will delay the start of new projects at the end of the plan. Officers have identified two new posts to help resolve this problem in project management and property. This report asks council to fund these posts with the resulting expenditure amounting to £48,010 in the current financial year. So, under the framework of the new council plan, and with the proper resources in place to address the challenges we face, let's continue to work together to deliver better for our residents.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Is there a second? Councillor Dennis Livingstone, do you want to speak now or later?
Council plan is as expected, fresh vision, Horsham district. In my view, it clearly lays out this administration's intent for the future. I thank my friends on the cabinet for putting together an exemplary set of objectives of how to improve the lot of our residents, businesses, and the environment. With a clear intent I personally welcome, I think it's very important, and that is to listen, learn, and improve. This is how I, as a chartered engineer, move forward, continually listening, learning, improving, and striving for a better and safer future. I'm delighted to say there is a great deal of energy within this council from all parties, common aim for a better future for Horsham district. That includes both urban and rural areas. There will certainly be many challenges, but together we implement the objectives and goals of our plan, Horsham district will be better. I'm very pleased to second this motion for the council plan 2023 to 2027 and the annual plan 2023 to 2024 with the associated resources. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Livingstone. Well, that immediately opens the debate on your opinions.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to reinforce what was said by Councillor Mellon in the council plan and the annual plan. I just want to bring to attention to not only Cabinet but all the council that the second point in the council plans and green futures, particularly three, which is nature diverse places for people to live in. And I just wanted to bring to the Cabinet and Council's attention the report published in September. This was a landmark report which brings together information from over 60 research organisations collected by thousands of skilled volunteers. It gives us a comprehensive picture of how different species and habitats are doing, with some faring much worse than others. Key findings include across the UK, species studied have declined on average by 19% since 1970. Farmland bird species in the UK have, on average, seen their numbers fall by more than half since 1970. Invertebrate species found in 13% fewer places now than in 1970. There have been strong declines in some insect groups with important roles such as pollinators like bees and hoverflies. More than half of the plants in Great Britain have been lost from areas where they used to thrive. And finally, only 1 in 7 of the UK's important habitats for wildlife were found to be in good condition. I would encourage Cabinet members who are responsible for the green areas to think about these figures and bear them in mind. Without some kind of improvement in this district, we will be facing the same decline as the rest of the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain. Councillor Bell. Anyone else like to speak? Yeah, Councillor Pratt.
Yes, Chair. Thank you very much. I've read through this plan in some detail, and I think I would also like to congratulate particularly the leader and the cabinet who worked pretty hard on this over the last few months. And I think there's a lot of really good stuff in there. I think that some of the detail is well worth looking at. And one that caught my eye was the flexible working investment in not only Horsham, but across the district and in the communities. And I think that, the way of the workplace has changed so dramatically in the last 2 to 3 years. And it is affecting all of us who work. And I think that if we do this properly, not just in the town, but wherever it might be needed, and do it to a high quality, it will have a significant impact on people's daily work lives and on the communities in which they work. If you go into Horsham town at the weekend, it's very, very busy. During the week, it's not so bad. In fact, it's not a bad place compared with many, but I think it will help sustain the liveliness and the life in the town and in the villages if we do this well. But that's all.
Thank you. Are there any other councillors who would like to make a comment? Otherwise, I have to put it to you that all those in favour of approving the recommendation on page 17 of the agenda, please show.
That's unanimous.
In that case, I have to say that the motion is carried. Thank you very much for your patience. 6B on page 17 and 18 of the Conservation Area Assessment and Designations, Horsham Park Terrace Gardens. I think that Councillor Milne, this is yours as well.
It is indeed, Chairman. I get to do double roll tonight. Thank you. At the moment, we have 37 adopted conservation areas across Horsham district, and it's been decades since the last one was added. Today, we propose to add Park Terrace Gardens in central Horsham to that list. The designation of a conservation area is undertaken where the local planning authority identifies that an area has a special architectural quality or historic interest. The Planning, Listed Building and Conservation Areas Act 1990 places a duty on local planning authorities to review whether any parts of their area should be designated as conservation areas. We're also expected to periodically review existing areas and add to them if necessary. In line with this duty, and following a request by residents who presented strong evidence to demonstrate the special interest of their area, we are of the view that the neighbourhood around Norfolk Terrace in Horsham is worthy of designation as a conservation area. This area contains particularly intact Victorian heritage and detailing. Reflecting the historical evolution of the neighbourhood, the proposed conservation area is to be known as Park Terrace Gardens. In order to decide whether the area should receive formal designation, we first undertook a wide public consultation. The process and outcome of this is outlined in more detail in the attached report. I would very much like to thank everyone in the community who contributed their information and suggestions as part of this feedback process, and also all the councillors who have helped this through over the last year or so. In light of this feedback, we have slightly amended the area covered by the conservation area to ensure that the boundary is robust and that it justifies being given status as a conservation area because of its special architectural or historic interest. We spent some time considering the different interests of the mainly residential streets compared to the businesses along Park Street. In particular, the businesses were understandably anxious to ensure that their ability to adapt swiftly to today's challenging commercial environment should not be constrained in any way by the need to ensure that they were following conservation area rules. By understanding the commercial buildings as part of the setting or fringe of the conservation area proper, we believe we have found a middle way which protects the key interests of both sides, and this is incorporated into the plan. I therefore move that Council approve the designation of this new conservation area and its accompanying management plan, which will help inform future planning decisions regarding developments both within and adjoining this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Is there a seconder? Councillor Franklin, do you want to speak now or later?
Later, please.
Thank you very much. In that case, the debate is open, and if anyone wants to speak, now is the chance.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm really pleased to see this conservation area come to fruition. I spent more than a few happy mornings or afternoons chatting to the locals up there who were fully behind this and very enthusiastic. And I think the compromise that's been reached actually works for everyone. So I fully endorse it. I could witter on because I had a wonderful time up there. They're so nice. They're so lovely. They love their homes. They're trying to restore them. They found a local glazier that will make the glass. But I'm right behind it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you very much. As one of the local members, I support this this proposal. Park Terrace Gardens almost accidentally escaped the bulldozer. It was going to be knocked down as part of Horsham's modernisation, and then it wasn't. In fact, it ended up being designated an area of indecision. And thank you to that past indecision, we now have a beautiful little Victorian gem to preserve. But thank you also to the residents in the area who initiated this and did a great deal of the initial work, not only cataloguing all the features and looking into the history, which has been of great help to Horsham District Council taking it forward, but also establishing a really strong base of support amongst the residents. I'd like to make sure that we are noting our special thanks to those residents because they really have been a driving force behind this and have done a great job. I'd also like to thank particularly the officers for the excellent work they've done on community consultation with everybody in the area, and as was mentioned by Councillor Milne, there was disagreement about whether or not this should be designated as a conservation area. If there wasn't disagreement, then I guess you wouldn't need conservation areas anyway, because people would be conserving them without any further recognition. And there were genuine conflicting arguments on a number of sites and on a number of points, and the final boundary was very much a matter of balance, balancing the various historical and heritage and architectural aspects of the buildings with the other issues. And I'm really pleased that the officers went to such great efforts to have extended discussions with all those people who had concerns and objections, and not just the people who were in favour of this. I think we've come up with a very good compromise. I'm pleased that we've managed to come up with a boundary that includes the corner property on Norfolk Road, which I think really does sort of signpost and bookend the coherent area that we've now settled on. And I look forward to success for the conservation area.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Councillor Noel.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to comment on every single item. That, okay, so worried. You're looking at me slightly worriedly. Thank you. I fully support the decision of Cabinet, and particularly Councillors Milne and Fletcher, to finalise this decision to create a conservation area. The project was started in July 22, when the Victorian street pattern was recognised as creating an individual sense of community and place within Horsham town. I've actually just been corrected, apparently it was 21 when we first looked at it, yes. This type of housing has, in the past, been carelessly torn down by many town councils, and indeed by this one when the Albion Way was created, all in pursuit of modernisation and redevelopment. There has been little or no appreciation in the past of the architectural significance of this type of Victorian craftsmanship. There are 7 locally listed buildings in this area, especially in Bartlock Road, which contain significant red brick construction designs featuring stone carvings and fine examples of Victorian terracotta panels, pediments and finials. This form of local town architecture must be preserved for our future generations, so they can appreciate the now lost art of detailed vernacular design, and I congratulate this administration on seeing this project through to its conclusion today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Noel. Councillor Circus.
Thank you, Chairman. 2 points really, but first of all I'd like to endorse what Councillor Noel says. I think it's an absolute tragedy, the character areas, the character buildings, the wonderful pieces of architecture that have been lost. I hope our planning department doesn't mind me saying this, but of course a number of people have said that town planners finished off much of the work that the Luftwaffe started, and it's sad to see places like well, up and down the country, many towns and cities which have had the heart ripped out of them, and character buildings destroyed. And so we thoroughly support this move, and I'm delighted that the trend in terms of public opinion is towards conserving what is good in our society. But there are 2 points I wanted to raise. I wonder whether the Cabinet member, I raised these 2, but I think these 2 issues in Cabinet, but I think they're quite important issues. The first is that it's quite clear to me from the consultation that has been going on in West Chiltington relating to that proposed consultation, that proposed conservation area, that a lot of people are thoroughly confused about what the effect that a conservation area designation is going to have on their ability to do things with their property. And some people have got clearly very wide of the mark assessments, rather than seeing this as something that enhances their property and their area. And so I wonder whether the Cabinet member can comment on that. The second point is another point I made at the Cabinet meeting is, in a way, we have to think also about the general street environment, and that means looking at street furniture and other aspects of what makes an area something that people appreciate in terms of the built environment. And I wonder he could just comment on what we can do as a council. I appreciate that some of it has to do with what my colleagues at county can do in order not just to preserve buildings, but also enhance the surrounding environment in which those buildings sit. Thank you very much, Jim.
Thank you, Councillor Surface. Councillor Mills, you want to come back on?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, as I mentioned, it's a long time since we've done a conservation area at HDC, and this has been a learning process for everyone concerned, including officers. And I agree with you that we have come across that problem. A lot of people, residents, don't fully understand the implications of being in an area, and some people have fears that are simply not correct, that they'd be forced to restore it to, I don't know, an outside toilet and and this is not the case. I think we've learned some lessons with this one, although it's gone well, but nevertheless we've learned some lessons along the way, and I think we can apply them in West Chiltington, which will be the next area, as you say, to see if we can help do a better education job in the first place. So I agree with you, and I do think we can make some improvements on what we've done this time round. And just to mention again, I know you asked me in Cabinet, but I'll say again here, the delay for the West Chiltington conservation area was purely workload and logistics, because we in the end gave extra time to Park Terrace Gardens to answer particularly the needs of the commercial outlets. That basically was too much to concentrate on both of them at once. So that's the only reason for the delay, and we will move on to that very shortly. Your other point about street furniture, I guess, as you say, your colleague to your left would probably be able to assist on that. I think it's an area we need to take forward. We don't necessarily have control or jurisdiction over much of it, but I think it's a fair point, and probably not just for Park Terrace Gardens, but other areas too. But it's one to look into, I think, for the future. Thank you.
Councillor Hogman.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to add my support and say thank you to the Cabinet member and the local member for perhaps listening to some of the fears around the economic development. The original plan as drawn had many of the businesses on Park Street included, and there were serious concerns by some of the business owners. And I'm really pleased to see that this administration has listened to the fears and concerns of those businesses, and that we've managed to protect the conservation area whilst equally supporting the local economy. So thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hogman. Are there any other comments? In that case, Councillor Franklin.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, a couple of the points I really wanted to make were certainly alluded to by Councillor Lambert and Councillor Fletcher. But the point I wanted to make and reinforce perhaps is this isn't just about the design of the buildings and having nice old buildings. There is something that has taken place in that part of the town which has meant that there's a really strong sense of community, and I think that is driven partly by design, but partly by other things as well, which we should recognise. You know, it has access to green spaces, it has access to the town, etc., etc. And I think the point I really want to, 2 points really. One is that there are other parts in our district, or areas in our district, which have particularly good senses of community. I live in one, in Trafalgar, and for lots of reasons. The buildings, the layout, the access to the town, the access to the park, the green spaces within it, the schools and the shops has driven really a really strong sense of community there, and I think we should look out for that in other parts of our district. But in addition to that, we're going to be developing as a district going forward, and I think it's absolutely paramount importance that things like design and all those things that go to engender and enable a sense of community in those developments is going to be really, really important for us. And I want to, if you like, to learn the lesson, to look at this as and other conservation as case studies in how we might be informed about designing and developing new developments that come along. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Franklin. On that note, can I bring this to conclusion and ask all those in favour of approving the recommendation on page 18 of the agenda, please show.
That's unanimous.
Thank you. And that is carried. Thank you. Item 6C on page 18, supply of tyres and associated parts and services for Horsham District Council and Crawley Borough Council, and I invite Councillor J Mercer, who's the Cabinet Member for Environmental Health, Recycling and Waste, to present this item and move the recommendations.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a relatively straightforward item. All the details are in the report. Essentially a procurement process which we shared with Crawley Borough Council for tyres for all council vehicles. One tender but two contracts, one for us, one for them. Cabinet approved the award of the contract to the highest scoring bidder and delegated authority to finalise the terms and conditions of the contract to officers. Unfortunately, the bid is £6,600 higher than the current budget for tyres, even though that current budget, because of the rising costs, is already projecting an overspend. So in this case, the Cabinet is coming to Council to recommend that the relevant budget be increased by the necessary amount, 6,600.
Fine. Is there a seconder for this? Councillor Brooks, are you seconding this one?
Yes, I'm very happy to second that. Thank you for the reminder.
Thank you very much.
And I can speak later if necessary.
Thank you. Right, so it's open for anyone to make a comment or say something if they wish to. Should no one wish to speak. Did you want to say anything, Councillor?
I will say briefly and quote our Cabinet Member for Finance that this is a no-brainer. This is, I think, a necessary step to take advantage of a particular situation. I don't anticipate that anybody has any strong feelings about this, and I hope that we can proceed to a speedy vote.
Excellent, thank you. So all those in favour of approving the recommendation on page 18, please show. Thank you.
That's 42-4.
Thank you. The motion is obviously carried. I think that exhibits why we might need electronic voting, but that's nothing to do with me tonight. 6. Yeah. They have been counted. Sorry, I didn't. Thank you very much, Paul. So what was the vote? Say that bit loud.
We need to ask for against and then abstentions.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. Is that all right? That's my fault. I didn't think there was anybody against or abstaining, so I'll go back over and say there was one councillor who voted against.
No, he didn't. He didn't vote.
Oh, sorry, he didn't vote. No,
well,
that is my problem. Then he didn't vote, or she didn't vote.
So
no.
Can you take?
Can we take the vote again? So for my sake, it would actually help me because I obviously sort of missed out on the whole thing. So can you redo this, please, for me, and just vote for those who are in favour, and those who are against, and those who are abstaining. Thank you. Is that all right?
Yes, that's 41 for, 0 against, 1 abstention.
do apologise for that. I was sitting here blasely imagining that everyone was going to vote for us. No, I'm not going to do that again. Right. On pages 18 and 19, disabled facilities grant, approval of budget and grant allocation. And I invite Councillor Mercer again to talk to this one and move the recommendation.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, I hope this will be a relatively short item. There has been a national top-up of £50 million across the country for disabled facilities grant 23-24. Our share of that is £122,495. If approved by Council, the Cabinet has already agreed that the allocation of this fund can go ahead under existing policies. So Cabinet is asking the Council to agree to receive this grant and increase the relevant part of the capital programme budget accordingly.
Thank you. And is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Knowles, thank you. Do you want to speak now or later?
I'll speak now, thank you. I'm delighted to second this motion to accept funding for home adaptations for the elderly and disabled that are eligible. My late father was a recipient of one of these grants from HTC, and it made a significant difference, enabling him to remain safe and independent at home. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have anything else to say? No. In that case, all those in favour of approving the recommendation on page 19 of the agenda, please show.
That's unanimous.
It looks unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. The motion is therefore carried. Thank you. Item 7 is recommendations from the committees, the Governance Committee, and those recommendations I think are on page 21 to 24. So 7A, temporary appointment to parish councils. And I invite Councillor Belinda Walters, Chair of the Governance Committee, to introduce this item and move the recommendation.
Thank you, Chair. The recommendation is to delegate authority to the returning officer to make temporary appointments to parish councils. Occasionally, parish councils have become inquorate and so cannot conduct business or co-opt councillors to become quorate. In these circumstances, councillors have the power to appoint two parish councils to render them quorate. This delegation is considered appropriate as it will minimise any inquorate period and negate the requirement to consider these matters at council meetings, as we've done in the past. I move the recommendation as stated on page 21 of the agenda.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for this proposal?
I'm happy to second that, Chair.
Speak now or later?
I'm happy to speak now. Councillors will recall that this council has recently taken steps as described to ensure that one of our parish councils in the district that had become unfortunately inquorate could be quorate and co-opt appropriate members, and they will also recall that that vote was unanimous in conferring a temporary appointment on Councillor Dennis Livingston. This is, I think, a sensible adjustment to our processes, that we are more efficient, that parish councils who become inquorate for a number of reasons can speedily resume their vital business and are not required to wait for this body to sit and to appoint a councillor to them to become quorate. And I think that the benefits of efficiency and the additional flexibility are clear and cannot necessarily be overstated.
Thank you very much. The debate is open for any comments. Oh, Councillor Lambert.
Thank you, Chairman. I think our parish councils are having a tough time at the moment, and I think anything we can do to help them, should they get into a situation like this, should be greatly encouraged. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Well, if not, can I ask that all those in favour of approving the recommendation on page 21 of the agenda, please show.
That's unanimous.
Thank you very much. The motion is carried. On page 21, the next item is the public speaking at council meetings. And I invite Councillor Belinda Walters, Chair of Governance, to introduce this item and move the recommendations.
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies if I sound like a rebel. This recommendation is to adopt changes to public speaking rights at ordinary and extraordinary meetings of the Council. For ordinary meetings, the proposal is broadly as follows. That the public may ask questions on notice of Cabinet members and committee chairmen. Questions must relate either to matters, 1, which the Council has responsibility for, or 2, which affect the district. Speakers must reside or work in the district. Speakers may ask supplementary questions but may not make statements. Members may respond orally or in writing, and question time is limited to 15 minutes or 6 questions, whichever is greater. For extraordinary meetings, the proposal is broadly as follows. That the same principles apply, save that questions must relate to the business of the meeting, supplementary questions are not allowed, question time is limited to 20 minutes or 6 questions, whichever is greater. The key differences between the existing provisions and the proposed provisions are broadly as follows. For ordinary council meetings, members of the public can ask questions in relation to matters which the council has responsibility for and which specifically affects the district, as opposed to questions being limited to the business of the meeting. 2. The head of paid service may reject a question if it is substantially the same as a question which has been put at an ordinary or extraordinary meeting of the council and or meeting or special meeting of the cabinet in the past 6 months, as opposed to a question that has been put solely to council in the past 6 months. And 3, a new section has been incorporated specifically for extraordinary council meetings. In these meetings, questions are limited to the business of the meeting. The recommendations. At our meeting on the 27th of September, the Governance Committee resolved to include some additional wording in its recommendation towards public speaking at Cabinet meetings. That wording permitted the head of paid service to reject a question if it related to personal and or inappropriate matters of the speaker. Therefore, I think it appropriate that this provision is reflected similarly for council meetings. Therefore, with the meeting's consent, I propose that the recommendation 1 on page 21 of the agenda is altered so that it reads 1. To approve and adopt the changes recommended by the committee as detailed in Appendix D to the report, and this is the alteration, with the addition of the following wording in paragraph 4J 1.5 under the heading Scope of Questions. E. In the opinion of the head of paid service relates to personal and or inappropriate matters of the speaker. I propose that recommendation 2 on page 22 in relation to reflecting any new proposals in the constitution of the agenda remains as stated.
Thank you, Councillor Walters. If any member does not consent to Councillor Walters proposing an altered recommendation, can you please speak now? Do you want me to go through that again? You're happy with that? Yeah. If any member does not consent to Councillor Walters proposing an altered recommendation, please speak now. Yeah, Councillor Mount.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hear what he said and don't necessarily disagree with it, but the term inappropriate in the opinion of the officer inappropriate is a very wide term, and I feel that it's open to a lot of conjecture about what is appropriate and inappropriate, and I would kind of like that part of it to be a little clearer, please.
Thank you very much, Councillor Manton. Councillor Service.
We are departing, of course, from the views that the Governance Committee had under the last council, which was the view we used to have was a view that, frankly, members on both sides, I think, have differences of view about. We support this going forward at this stage, but I think I would like some sort of confirmation that the effect of these changes will be reviewed. Now, I believe the leader of the council gave us some indication that during this municipal year there will be a full review of the constitution, in which case I think it would just be helpful if we could have a commitment that these new speaking arrangements will be reviewed as part of that general review of the Constitution, and in order to see whether some of the concerns that we had under the previous council had any justification or not. So, subject to confirmation that these new arrangements will be monitored and reviewed as part of the general review of the Constitution, we will be quite happy to support these changes.
Yes,
Just to answer that, obviously, I'm the deputy leader, not the leader, but yes, you're right. We are undertaking a full review in governance, and I see no reason to not to comply with your request.
Councillor. Thank you, Chairman. Similar to Councillor Circus, I have a slight concern about some of the wording that affects our district, because almost everything and anything can affect our district, and it's a very loosely worded policy that if Councillor Milne and Councillor Walters are committing to reviewing later in the year, I think we do need to see how that plans out. We have had previous questions on notice and notice of motion, and questions from members of the public on cash points that aren't directly within our control, on pharmacies that aren't directly within our control, and I do wonder whether we should tighten that wording up. I'm happy to agree and support this motion, and but if we do get too many notices, questions coming to council that aren't in the direct control of this council, we may want to consider tightening the wording slightly. But I will be supporting this motion this evening, but I'm keen to keep it under review. Thank you.
Councillor Rawls.
Thank you. I think it's wise to raise concerns, but I think it's also wise to give something a try. We've had this request from the public to open up this more in the past, and I just point everyone back to the council plan, which we all just approved unanimously. Thank you very much. What we've said as a theme, where we will always continue to be listening, learning, and improving. So if we do something that maybe could be improved further, then that's what we'll do. So thank you.
If there are no other questions, can I move this on, because I asked if no one, or if there were members who did not consent. My impression is that with certain reservations, members will consent, but I have to have a seconder initially, following what Councillor Walters said. So, is there a seconder for that? Okay. Councillor Mercer.
I'll second that for me.
Thank you. So, with the proviso that has been expressed, there may be other members who wish to add to what has been said, and I will open it up for them. If there is no one else, and we have those comments made, and you are happy with those comments, and the reply that we had from Councillor Milne, unless there are any other definitive comments, I'm going to ask that all those in favour of the motion please show.
That's unanimous.
Thank you for that, and I'm sure that the comments made will be taken on, but the motion was carried. Item C, on page 22, public speaking at cabinet meetings. And again, I invite Councillor Belinda Waters to move this item.
Thank you, Chair. This recommendation is to adopt changes to public speaking rights at ordinary and special meetings of the Cabinet. For ordinary meetings, the proposal is broadly as follows. Speakers may ask questions on notice of Cabinet members. Questions must relate either to matters, 1, which the Council has responsibility for, 2, which affect the district. Speakers must reside or work in the district. Speakers may ask supplementary questions but may not make statements. Members may respond orally or in writing. Question time is limited to 15 minutes or 6 questions, whichever is greater. For special meetings, the proposal is broadly as follows: that the same principles apply, save that questions must relate to the business of the meeting. Speakers may not ask supplementary questions. Question time is limited to 20 minutes or 6 questions, whichever is greater. The key differences between the existing provisions and the proposed provisions are broadly as follows. 1. The ordinary cabinet meetings, members of the public can ask questions in relation to matters which the council has responsibility for and which specifically affect the district, as opposed to questions being limited to business of the meeting. 2. The head of paid service may reject a question if it is substantially the same as a question which has been put at an ordinary or extraordinary meeting of the council and or meeting or special meeting of the cabinet in the last 6 months, as opposed to a question that has been put solely to council in the past 6 months. And 3, a new section has been incorporated specifically for special cabinet meetings. In these meetings, questions are limited to business of the meeting. I move the recommendations as stated on page 22 of the agenda.
Thank you very much. Councillor Waters, do you have a second?
I'm happy to second that, Chair.
Do you want to speak now or later?
I shall speak now. This is substantially in line with the motion upon which we have just voted, and I'd like to note the comments that have been made by councillors in regard to that this is something that can and indeed should be revisited as we test it, but I would also like to note that members of the public, as councillors may have noticed in the West Sussex County Times, where it was reported, have welcomed this council's action and the Governance Committee's speedy action to consider these. I also note that this tidies up some inconsistencies and some omissions in the current constitution, specifically regarding what is permitted in terms of the public's addressing a cabinet. This brings us in line with other authorities within the West Sussex area, and I think broadens the scope and involvement for members of the public to engage with democracy without having clarity and confusion. And I hope that we can similarly support this in the understanding that these can be continually revisited. And I'd like to thank the monitoring officer and the officers in Legal and Democratic Services for the work they've done in drafting these.
Thank you very much, and I'm going to open it out now for people's comments, because I'm Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you. I very much support this. It's in line with our principles of openness and transparency and greater engagement with the public. I just wanted to perhaps correct one slight comment here, in that I'm sure when my fellow councillors spoke about the support from the public in the newspaper, he didn't intend to suggest that that was the sole representative support for this from the members of the public. I know that many of my colleagues have had many conversations over recent years with members of the public who have been asking for this kind of change, and the comment in the County Times was just one example of that.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Yes, Councillor Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Forgive me if I misunderstood this, but I heard that these questions would be limited to 15 minutes or 6 questions, whichever is the greater, and 20 minutes and 6 questions, or sorry, 20 minutes or 6 questions, whichever is the greater. I'm a little confused that in order to maintain some control of the meeting, that it should be a number of minutes and a number of questions, whichever item is reached first. In other words, limiting. You could have somebody speaking for half an hour on six questions, or 10 minutes on 7 questions. I'm just a little confused. Is it supposed to be greater, a limit, or greater?
Well, what's the cabinet? I mean, the governance.
Oh, you promoted me. Sorry.
Yes, would you like to answer that question?
Yes, it is the greater. There is a difference between ordinary meetings of the Cabinet and extraordinary meetings of the Cabinet. It was felt that when we have extraordinary meetings of the Cabinet, for example, looking at the local plan, we should give people more time. So that's the difference.
Thank you much, kindly.
Thank you. Anybody else? In that case, I think we go to a vote. So all those in favour of approving the recommendations on page 23, please show.
That's 41 for.
So that is 41 for and 1 abstention.
Any against?
Oh, I forget any against, yes. Any against? But an abstention. Thank you. Good. I'm afraid that the next one comes round to Councillor Walters. Again, on page 22 to 23, delegation to Chief Finance Officer, section 151. And I invite you to talk to this and move your recommendations.
Thank you, Chairman. This recommendation is to adopt changes to sorry, that's the wrong one. My mistake. The recommendation asks Council to approve 3 delegations to the Chief Finance Officer. And I hope you're reading with me, because this can be a bit confusing. These are as follows. Number 1, first, to approve the receipt and expenditure and or allocation of grant monies for new projects or services for which there is no provision in the Council's budget, up to £100,000. And 2, to approve the receipt and expenditure and or allocation of grant monies for existing projects or services for which there is no provision in the Council's budget, up to £249,999. These 2 delegations would replace the Chief Finance Officer's existing delegation, in relation to receipt and expenditure of grant monies up to £100,000. The third delegation is to allow the Chief Finance Officer to make decisions relating to income or expenditure for which there is no provision in the Council's budget up to £100,000. These delegations are thought appropriate as they would enhance the operational efficiency. The threshold amounts are proportionate and reasonable in the context of the Council's overall budget, and the Chief Finance Officer cannot act independently. All required actions will be undertaken first with the leader and second in consultation with both the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources and the Chairman of Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I move the recommendation as stated on page 23 of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Walters. Is there a seconder? I guess it's Councillor Brooks, is it?
Oh, no.
No? Councillor Clark. Thank you. Would you like to speak?
Chairman, I'll speak at the end, thank you, if necessary.
So that opens the debate up. Does anyone have any comments to make? Councillor Clark.
Well, it's not really necessary, but all I would say is I support this change to the delegations, which is a more efficient way of doing things and streamlines and brings up to date the way we're doing it. And more to the point, it doesn't weaken any safeguards or any mechanisms in place to make sure that things are done properly. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. So the recommendations are before you. Would you like to vote on those, please? Those in favour? Yeah.
That's unanimous.
Unanimous. Thank you very much. Which really brings us, I think, back to the last item on your governance, from your governance committee, doesn't it? The electronic voting, and I invite you to speak to that.
Thank you, Chair. Presently, as we've seen tonight, we've had a couple of bobbing officers because they cannot see us around the room. So we vote by raising our hands, and the vote is counted by the Democratic Services team before the result is declared by the Chairman of the Council. The Democratic Services team does not always have clear vantage points of raised hands owing to the configuration of the Council's chamber. Under the proposed electronic voting system, members will cast their vote using a touchscreen display on their microphones. Following a vote, the total number of votes for and against and the number of abstentions will be displayed on the screen, and the result of the vote will be declared by the Chairman of the Council. Full training on how to use the system will be provided. The proposal is that the system would be used for full council only and is not intended to be used for recorded voting at this time. The adoption of this system is considered appropriate as it will, one, remove the physical difficulties associated with counting votes, and it will ensure the accuracy of the vote. I move the recommendations as stated on page 24 of the agenda.
Thank you very much. Do you have a second?
For the last time this evening, Chair, I'm happy to second.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Do you want to speak now?
I'll speak later. I will let other people have a go.
Thank you very much. In that case, the debate is open for this. Yes, Councillor Bainham.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I would like to point out that this is actually, it's not just a streamline, it is actually a change. Because at the moment, when we vote for everybody to see. As I understand the proposal for the electronic voting, it would merely tally the votes rather than assign voters to their individual decision. And in the interest of transparency, I would regard that as a retrograde step. I'm going to support the motion. However, I would like the committee to take back and further consider the issue of actually assigning votes to actual real councillors rather than just numbers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Service.
It sounds, Chairman, like a very new initiative, but it's nothing of the kind. Because I actually remember visiting a local authority in the late 1960s that had electronic voting. So it's not exactly a new innovation. I think the big problem is that making sure that the technology is up to the task, because I hope my colleague here will allow me to say this, but when I was first a county councillor, and they introduced electronic voting, let's just say there was a lot of confusion. And in fact, the result was that the electronic voting caused more confusion and took longer than a simple show of hands. So we will be in the hands of the technology. I think Councillor Bainham is absolutely correct. It is one of the advantages of the present system is people can see how we vote. And even though if you strain your eyes at county and perhaps use opera glasses from the public gallery, you could actually see how members have voted. It's not as obvious as it is with a show of hands. Obviously, there will still be the opportunity for presumably a recorded vote. And can somebody confirm that there would be no intention of changing the existing basis under which we can call for a recorded vote? Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Waters.
Yes, I'm happy to confirm there will be no change to the way that we call for recorded votes or the way in which we record those votes.
Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. I've been quite happy to support this motion until the Chairman of Governance made a comment which then rang alarm bells. But I noticed that we have the head of IT here, so maybe it would be appropriate for my concern to be addressed. The comment was made that we would press buttons on screens with the microphones, but the microphones are basically shared mostly between different tables. So how's that going to work practically? I would have raised this earlier if that comment had been made earlier, if I can put it that way.
Thank you for that. Can I ask the officer?
Thank you, Councillor Clark. You share a microphone now, and if you notice, there are two buttons, a right and a left button. What each councillor would need to do is, and we would provide access cards, is register. So in your case, you're on the left hand side, you would register on the left hand side for your voting, and Councillor Manton would register sitting next to you on the right hand side, and you'd be able to vote that way.
Thank you very much. Does that help? I think, yes, Councillor Beers.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm afraid I'm not going to support this motion. I have great sympathy with the members of Democratic Services. You do a great job, but I think this is a sledgehammer solution to a nut-sized problem. I don't think it's a great solution, and I don't think it's a necessary solution. I accept that some councils maybe have been using electronic voting since the 60s, but unless I see something that looks a bit slicker than what we have in front of us now, I'm certainly not going to support spending £10,000 on what seems to be a bit of a sort of lash up. So I'm against it, sorry.
Councillor Fisher.
Thank you. I too thank the officers for their work and diligence in counting our hands. I will be voting against this also. on the grounds of cost and unnecessary cost. All we have to do is put our arms up a little bit higher, but mainly on the grounds of openness and transparency, which Councillor Fletcher's mentioned as being a priority for this council going forwards. I think it's very important that members see how members vote and that the public see how the members vote, and that means that what we take full responsibility for the decisions that we make and that they are open, public and transparent. So I would urge everybody else to follow suit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fisher. Councillor Trott.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm afraid I have to echo Councillor Bainham and Councillor Beavis on the transparency issue, and I think it is important that people, the general public and other councillors see how we vote. However, there are a couple of practical solutions. As we saw when we entered the council chamber this evening, the first thing that happened is one of the microphones didn't work. So what happens then? Does that mean that that person can't vote, or does he have to run to someone else's terminal to vote? How does that work? How is the system going to be maintained? Is there a service wrap around that system? And if so, what's the cost of that? I suspect that'll be more than the 10 grand. And at this time of financial crisis, I think really £10,000 on something that's not really necessary. I agree, it's nice, but it's not really necessary at this stage. I don't think I can support.
Thank you, Councillor Trott. Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Chair. Overall, I'm quite supportive of this measure. I think I welcome the potential move to electronic voting. However, I believe we could go further, as has been echoed here today. I'm of the opinion that if the technology we're proposing to implement, considering its cost, is capable, that the Government's Committee explore having recorded voting as standard. As elected councillors, we are accountable to our residents on how we vote, and I support obviously having that transparency. I strongly believe this would fit in with the new administration's ambition to be further accountable and transparent with our residents across the district by having a recorded vote as standard if we were to introduce this measure. So I'd like to explore whether there is rationale to go further with this, and whether the Governance Committee would be open to exploring this possibility. Of course, there may be teething problems with this system, which I do take into account. However, I think the overall, if those can be addressed in time, the positives outweigh the negatives. So I will be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Crowe.
Thank you, Chair. As a member of Governance Committee, I actually voted against this committee. In the interim, I've had some discussions with IT, and I've been reassured to a degree. However, I note the Chair of Governance had the remark that training would be provided. That always worries me. And I think, on the balance, I'm inclined to vote against this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lappin.
Thank you, Chairman. I should be voting against this because I think £10,000 is a lot of money to spend at this point in time where we may have greater need of it to help our residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor
Thank you, Chairman. We've heard a couple of objections this evening. We have one on grounds of transparency and openness and democratic rights, and I have to say I feel I share that opinion, but I was pleased to hear that we could have a recorded vote. However, if I could go back to something that the head of IT mentioned, and perhaps if Chairman will allow me to question her, it did say on the system that we would register as councillors, and I guess my question is a technical one. Does that mean if we're registering as councillors when we vote, it is a recorded vote and every vote is recorded? Because if that's the case, our voting intention can be published on the website, and it removes that argument this evening that some councillors are making against transparency. Obviously, that would still leave councillors diligently to decide whether the cost was beneficial. But if I could ask that question to IT, it'd be much appreciated. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hogburn. What happens is each councillor, because we don't have fixed seating in this room, needs to register the microphone to them. The only people who would see that is Democratic Services. So if somebody doesn't vote or hasn't press the button, then the Democratic Services team on their screen will be able to say, Councillor Hogburn, you haven't registered a vote, please could you press your button. That information isn't kept or isn't regarded for a recorded vote. It's there for the meeting. It's not something that then is formulated for publication. They will only then give you a bar chart of the fors, the against and the abstains. But it's there for the purposes of Democratic Services, making sure that every councillor registers a vote.
Thank you, Chairman. That sort of answers my question. I guess it's disappointing because I thought we might be able to publish the recorded votes and end the transparency debate, but it sounds as if there are still some councillors that fear a lack of transparency in the system. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Minto. Sorry, thanks, Chair. I probably need to see an example of this working or not working to be able to come down on a decision on it. So I think if we're going to have to go to a vote on this, I'm probably going to miss out on that opportunity. So probably end up abstaining as a consequence of it. But it sounds like there's lots of ifs, buts, and maybes to this one, and I'm a little bit unsure on what actually is the practicality of it. Unfortunately, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Troll.
Hi, I work in IT and I use a lot of IT in my life, but I think there's a certain charm in not having IT for something. And for that reason, I'm sorry, I'm going to vote against. It is charming. I love the fact that these are names, and I think there's some niceness about it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Trott. Councillor Olsen.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to respond to perhaps some of our newer councillors who may not have all tried to watch one of these sessions on YouTube to note that you are not actually all in the camera at any one point. So the transparency argument, I think, is weak at the moment because I think our voting is quite not transparent. You can all look to your right or my left. We don't have any members of the public actually in the room to see how we vote. And I echo Councillor Jeffrey's comments that, to be honest, I think every one of our votes should effectively be recorded, and we should be held to account to how we vote on everything, be it an amendment, be it approving the minutes, be it the local plan. So I will support this motion, however, because I believe that well, I hear the comments of my colleagues about the situation we find ourselves in as a community in the cost of living, and we have already committed huge sums to address that. But at the same time, we must be able to operate effectively, efficiently, and to a modern level that is required of a council, of an organization, and that means consistent investment in technology. And I believe this is something that should have been done long ago, perhaps out of our plentiful reserves, but now we're asking to do it now. Thank you. I will support.
Thank you very much. Councillor Merton.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a number of comments. I was at the Governance Committee and I voted in favour of this. We didn't discuss actually the practicalities of the system that we would adopt, so I'm interested that officers have taken this further and made some assumptions about what would be appropriate. I have the experience, as a number of colleagues in the room do, of the electronic voting at county, and that actually is also very useful to the chair, who, for example, can see who is waiting to speak. An example of that right at the moment was that when Councillor Olsen leaned forward to ask to speak, I was sitting behind him waving my hand. There are issues about visibility in this room. It is not ideal, and also there are other issues related to this. I feel a bit like someone who is a rugby fan being faced with difficulties around VAR in soccer, because Rugby Union in particular and Rugby League adopted video replays some years ago, and I think every rugby fan knows that they're really effective, they're very quick, and everybody knows what's going on. Whereas our colleagues in the soccer field, let's just say it hasn't been as easily adopted, and there have been a number of questions about the technicalities of it, how it's done, etc., etc. And to be honest, colleagues, that's what I'm hearing from those who are worried about
the technical solutions. I really think we should be going down this route. I appreciate it's a significant amount of money, but like my colleague Councillor Olsen, I think it is something that we should do in order to work more effectively.
Thanks very much. Councillor Fletcher.
It's right that we should be moving towards electronic voting because most people who would like to know what's going on in this council do not come to the meetings, and electronic voting gives us a means to efficiently let people know that. A situation where there is not a recorded vote automatically, however, does make us temporarily potentially go backwards, and so I'm supportive of the idea that we have the electronic voting, but like a number of my other colleagues, I would like to see us moving towards fuller accountability by recording all the votes, both so that we can see ourselves and we're not hiding from each other, and so that members of the public can see how we're voting.
Are there any other comments? Yes, Councillor Milne.
Thank you. Yeah, I think really, whilst I'm in favour of electronic voting in principle, and it does work at county very well, and everybody uses it now. This really matters what system we actually use. So I'm reluctant to vote on electronic voting per se, because it does matter which system and whether we're getting a system that delivers everything that we want it to, because we do have some constraints in this room. And so I'm wondering, are we able? It's a planning thing, but are we able to, with the motion, to defer this decision, or is it?
Yes, I mean, I think it's apparent that it probably needs referring back to the governance committee.
I feel that a lot of members would want to know for sure that we had the best system appropriate to our needs in order to make a decision, and I don't think we're going to get that tonight. And it's so for that reason, I would like to move a motion to defer so we could examine a specific system and vote on that. Do I have a seconder?
Well, it's been proposed by Councillor Milne that this is deferred or referred back to Governance Committee for further consideration, and I think that's very, if I may express an opinion, very sensible. So I have a seconder, which is Councillor Minto. Are there any people in favour of deferment? Yeah, deferment. Anyone in favour of deferment? Right. Any against?
We need to defer first.
I want an electronic system. I can't see half these hands going up and down. We'll do it again. Sorry.
In favour of deferral.
In favour of deferral.
This is for deferral.
Deferral.
Some people raised it before.
For against. And abstentions, please. Does that come to whatever it's supposed to come to? Does that add up to the right number? Yeah. So that is carried 24 for, 13 against, 2 abstentions. Thank you. We move on to item 8, report on special urgency decision, pages 25 and 28. I think Councillor Milne, you're going to speak to this. This is a report is in relation to a decision taken by Cabinet under special urgency powers and is just for noting, and I invite the Deputy Leader to speak on this item.
Thank you, Chairman. The Cabinet made a decision as a matter of a special urgency at our meeting on 28th of December as it was impractical to comply with legislation regarding advance notice of key decisions. As per the special urgency provisions, the Leader sought the agreement from the Chairman of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee that this decision was urgent and could not reasonably be deferred. This is because, firstly, we need to prevent the top deck car park surface from further deteriorating. Secondly, water ingress could lead to safety concerns. And thirdly, the top deck is presently not usable and will be required for the Christmas season. Therefore, the works need to be completed as a matter of priority, and I move that the recommendation in the report, we don't need to do that. No, it's just for noting, sorry. Thank you.
I will actually second that, because I'm sure there are other members who wish to speak, and if I don't, then
It's just for noting, it's a simple affirmation that everyone's noted it.
yeah, it's information, but other members may well want to speak. If anyone has any other comments. If not, so do members agree to note this report? Are you happy with this report? Yes. Thank you very much. Reports of representatives, item 9. I believe that Councillor Joan Grech is going to make a report on the South Downs National Park Authority.
Thank you, Chairman. It's now been a few months since I was appointed as a member of the South Downs National Park Authority, so time I reported back to the Council about what I have been doing as an authority member and with an update on the work of the Park Authority. The authority appointed me to its Policy and Resources Committee, and I have so far attended the authority AGM in July and 2 meetings of the Policy and Resources Committee, one in July and one in September. The authority has run a number of training sessions and 2 induction days, which included site visits, to help new members understand how the authority works to meet its statutory purposes and duty, including how it partners and interacts with others to serve the wider purposes of the park and to deliver its priorities, because the authority itself owns a very small percentage of the park. This includes engagement with major landowners within the park through whole estate plans, with the 6 farm cluster groups within the park which cover around 2/3 of the park area, and with landowners on matters relating to public rights of way, and with other organisations on the protection of the natural environment and the historic landscape and structures within the park, such as Natural England on the protection of national nature reserves and the sites of special scientific interest. Around 75% of the park is farmed. DEFRA's Farming in a Protected Landscape Programme Fund, abbreviated to FIPL, is an important source of funding for farmers and land managers for projects in the area of climate change mitigation, nature recovery, opportunity for people to access and enjoy the park, the conservation and enhancement of the landscape and the historic structures and features within the park, and sustainable farming businesses that contribute to a thriving economy. This fund is managed within the park by the authority's farming team. The South Downs National Park is the most populated national park in the UK, with 117,000 people living and working within it, and the authority has a significant responsibility for meeting the needs of communities within the park through its role as a planning authority. It also has a sustainable communities fund which provides grants to partnerships and other not-for-profit organisations to help fund projects that will bring social, environmental, economic or cultural benefits to a community within the park. Around 2 million people live within 3 miles of the park boundary, mostly in the heavily populated coastal strip. The authority is keen to encourage people to visit, enjoy and learn about the park and to get involved in volunteering in the park. In particular, people from underrepresented groups such as the young, disabled, socially disadvantaged and people from ethnic minority backgrounds. Projects to meet this objective include the Mild Out Styles, free-to-use mobility scooters at the Seven Sisters Country Park, volunteering opportunities specifically for people in the 16 to 25 age range, and the We Hear You Now audio trail at the Seven Sisters Country Park and Sussex Heritage Coast, where you can listen to several audio stories by female artists from ethnic minority backgrounds. New members were briefed on the relationship between the authority and the South Downs National Park Trust, which is an independent charity separate from the authority but works in collaboration with it to help deliver the authority's aims, and about the South Downs Commercial Operations Limited, which is a TECL company for the authority and which runs operations at Seven Sisters Country Park. For those not familiar with what a TECL company is, it's a company wholly controlled by a local authority and which the local authority also exercises effective day-to-day control over its affairs. The authority took ownership of the Seven Sisters Country Park from East Sussex County Council in July 2021 and have invested and are continuing to invest a considerable amount of money upgrading the facilities and improving natural habitats on the site. It is one of the most popular visitor destinations within the national park, and the authority has ambitions to open a similarly successful visitor destination in the west of the park should a suitable opportunity arise. A strategy day was held for all authority members at the Seven Sisters Country Park in September. It is expected that there will be a series of member workshops to consider in more detail ideas that came out of the strategy day discussions. The authority has begun work on its local plan review. It proposes to keep much from its current plan, such as the landscape-led approach, ecosystem services, and the development strategy of a medium level of development dispersed across the national park. But the review gives the authority the opportunity to address particular issues such as climate change and nature recovery, review development needs, and allows it to address changes in national policy. The local plan review is at the evidence gathering stage, and to support community input into the review, parish councils within the park have been asked to prepare a parish priority statement, EPS, to be submitted to the South Downs National Park Authority by 31st of October 2023, unless an alternative deadline is agreed with the South Downs National Park Authority. It is anticipated that a draft plan will be ready for a Regulation 18 consultation in early 2025. Finally, the authority is keen to understand what progress the local authorities that fall within the park have made towards its priorities of nature recovery, climate action, and a national park for all. To that end, it will be asking its members, drawn from local authorities, to do a brief presentation to park authority members covering their local authority's top-level policy statements in respect of each priority area and what their local authority has done or is doing in each of the three areas, plus a brief case study of a project in any of the three priority areas that provides a learning opportunity about implementation. It is expected that the presentations will be in January, and I would be grateful for assistance from Cabinet members with the relevant portfolios in putting together the Horsham District Council presentation in due course. The South Downs National Park Authority, like Horsham District Council, is using the One Planet platform, which opens up significant opportunities for collaborative working between the two organisations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greg. That was a lot of information there. Thank you very much for that. I'm sure it takes a lot of your time. Councillor Hughes.
Sorry, John. Would it be possible to have that report circulated with the papers for this meeting?
I think it would be great to give people time to consider it, but I think thank you very much for it. Councillor Kitchen, you want to talk about GACOM?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Not very long, you'll be pleased to hear. As your representative on GATCOM, I attended a transport forum at Gatwick Airport last week, and this, I would like to stress, was not their forum, but it was hosted by them, and for obvious reasons, Gatwick itself now is seen by other areas as a transport hub, which indeed it is. But 3 points came out of it which I thought might be of interest to you. One is that now for quite a few weeks now, they've been running hydrogen buses in and out of Gatwick, and this initiative it's not just at Gatwick, it's all over the country, I believe it's been tried. But this particular one is the Fastway area, and it is sponsored by and encouraged by Surrey County Council, West Sussex County Council, a number of particularly Brighton and Hove buses and Metro buses, but they're not the only ones. But I thought the interesting thing is it has been running for a while and it is apparently proving very successful. The other interesting thing came out of that was a company called Grid E, I think it's called, in lines of building charging stations for electric cars, what else, and they are building them all over the place. But the area I thought was of interest was that they are planning to generate their own electricity that they're using in their stations. I understand there's already one at Pease Pottage in the petrol station there, but they are planning to build some of their own with all the associated comforts that go with it. In my opinion, it's a way of getting more money out of all of us, but that's the way they're doing it. And the final thing I thought might be of interest, because that will inevitably spread over here, is that Avis, who I didn't know actually until then, are zip cars also, are planning a fairly large hub at Gatwick, but they are hoping to expand out into areas like Crawley and Horsham to increase the number of zip car users, which is very popular in big cities. So I just thought that as your representative on Gatcom, that might be of interest, or might not. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much.
I promised it to be short.
Yes, you did, and it was of interest, so thank you very much. Very good. Are there any other, has anybody else been to any outside bodies? No, thank you very much indeed for that. Which brings us to item 10, notice of motions. We have two notices of motion in accordance with Rule 4A14 of the Constitution, and the time allowed for this item is 30 minutes. So we have two motions, 30 minutes. So I'll take them in the order that they were received, and the first motion is from Councillor Roger Knoll, and I'll call on him to present his motion.
Thank you, Chairman. I hope that all councillors present this evening have been able to read this notice as printed in our bundles on page 29. It is a lengthy notice of motion, and I don't intend to waste too much council time by reading it out to you all again. Essentially, I shall just précis it, essentially the Care Leavers service in West Sussex enables young people leaving care to re-enter the adult world after some have experienced many years in protective care. We, as district councillors, are not defined in statute as corporate parents, unlike our county council colleagues at West Sussex. However, I believe we have several other local districts who have also had this motion presented to them, and that we have a common duty to work together, using all the resources available to us to do all we can to maintain the stability and continuity in the home lives of these vulnerable young people, keeping them safe and supported in relation to their physical and emotional needs, whilst encouraging their educational and work aspirations in life, and to prepare them for the adult world and independent living, just as we would if they were our own children. A current example of this in practical terms has been to invite all district and boroughs in West Sussex to work together to source accommodation for care leavers within the National House Project scheme. Mid Sussex Council have already agreed, along with other fellow district and borough partners, to provide 24 properties for this year, enabling West Sussex to give an opportunity to 24 individuals who are not quite ready for their own independence. I'm asking this council tonight to provide a community base for care leavers in order to nurture and support them. Such measures could be to consider free access to our leisure centres or to provide a direction towards work experience or apprenticeships. We as a council have the ability to help in this direction, and all I'm asking tonight is we vote together as a caring council to support this notice of motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Noel. Councillor Dennis, did you want to second this now, or?
I'll second it later, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we will debate the motion before us, and yeah, I'll be interested to hear how you're going to respond to this challenge. So it is open. Councillor Mountain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will support the motion. I will support anything to support young people, but not just care leavers, but young people across the county and the district. I am reminded that West Sussex County Council no longer have a youth services senior manager. The activities that used to take place at Cobham Activities Centre Trust are no longer supported by West Sussex County Council. The same happens at the Lodge Hill Trust, that was no longer supported by West Sussex County Council. This has left a gap for all young people, not just those in care leaving, in taking part in self-reliance, responsibility and life skills by taking part in orienteering, mountain leadership, sailing, climbing, canoeing, etc. And also for people who are care leavers, integrating with their peers and life skills. So, as I say, I will be supporting this evening, but I would like us and West Sussex County Council to act stronger in youth services, perhaps reappoint a senior manager for youth services and invest in the youth of the county and the district. Thank you.
Councillor Trollope.
Thank you. I don't necessarily just not endorse this, but I just want confirmation perhaps from the officers that this does actually fall within our remit. And if it doesn't, which I'm still kind of okay with, could I use the same sort of procedure to get more cycling initiatives?
Thank you. I think that might be answered a bit later this time. I'm hoping it will. Yes, Councillor.
I welcome what you brought forward, Councillor Noel. I think they're a particularly vulnerable group. I have personal experience of supporting a young person's district. I now have 3 children instead of 2. With a very informal friend of my son's who's been living with us since he was 14, and I will be taking him to Manchester to his new flat and new job next week. So I think the sort of principle that it takes a village to raise a child means that even if we're not the corporate parenting responsibility, the teachers and support staff at his school supported him, and one of the most stabilising factors whilst he was living with various people with us was that he went to Horsham Hawks Basketball Club, which was something run by volunteers. He's now playing for a team, and as my son is as well, my son's now coaching. That's been something they've been able to take through them for life. So I think there's opportunities to support the voluntary sector, whether that's sports, arts, music, all of these things support all of our young people. But for care leavers who've often had a terrible time and they've been separated from their parents, they may have been abused by their parents, and everything that we can do to support this group. Horsham District Council also works very closely. The last administration has built very strong bonds, and we have filled in the gaps that have appeared. There's funding issues, but county has pulled back from some of the youth services, and we do provide early intervention workshops in schools, which are not Horsham District Council responsibilities, and they're funded by county elsewhere, because we value that, and I think all the members across all the parties want to do more. It also fits in hugely with one of our priorities as a group, and something I'm passionate about, is that everybody has the good things in Horsham, that we all have that access wherever you are. And I think raising care leavers as one of the groups that are potentially missing out, we can go further. And I welcome this, and we'll look at ways that we can work closely with West Sussex County Council, but also to support our young people generally, such as Councillor Manton raised. The more we do for everybody, the better it will be for care leavers. I'll just make one very brief point, which is that care leavers have much higher incidence of mental health issues, and we have huge delays with accessing CAMS and other mental health services. I was talking to a resident earlier today who's waiting for an autism or an ADHD assessment for their son. Their GP laughed at them when they said, how long would it be? I raised a question last year to the cabinet member from county on this, and at that point last summer it was 3.5 years. So if you needed an assessment for autism because you were struggling at school, you might well not get that from going to secondary school to your GCSEs. So the opportunity for things to fall apart, that's going to massively impact care leavers. So I hope that there can be some progress. The answer I got was progress was being made, and I will be chasing that up to make sure that all our young people get rapid access to the mental health services that they need. But this is particularly pertinent to care leavers who have much higher incidence of mental health needs. Thank you.
Councillor Beard.
Yeah, we are the community, and within our district council we are that support network, and to offer that equal opportunities to everyone. Some people do need a stool to stand higher up, and so if we offer that stool to help, to support, to be there, I think it's essential. I'm really appreciating that this has been brought to the table, so thank you so much, and let's see what we can do.
Councillor Beavers.
Thank you, Chairman. I welcome Councillor Knowles' proposals in this motion, but I think that probably the Children and Young People's Scrutiny Committee at County would have had quite a long brief from senior officers about this issue if they considered a paper, which I'm afraid I haven't read, Leaving Care in West Sussex. And I think, although there's quite a bit of meat in this motion, I don't think there's enough there personally to make a decision on how we go forward. I would much rather we deferred voting on this motion until we'd had a much more detailed brief, preferably from a senior officer in West Sussex, and also a bit of a brief from our own financial people as to the sort of spend that we might be faced. I'm not objecting to the proposals as such, but I just feel that I'm just being railroaded a little bit. I haven't got enough information here to make a concrete decision, and I would like to make a positive concrete decision rather than just vote against this.
Thank you very much. Councillor John.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I would like to welcome Councillor Knowles' initiative here. It's very welcome. But I'd also like to echo Councillor Manton in what he was saying about broadening it out. And I just want to make one very quick point, that another very vulnerable proportion of our population are the service leavers that come in. A fact that we learnt from the SERFCA meeting not so long ago was that 4% of the population of Horsham district are veterans, which is quite a lot of people. So I just wanted to throw that in there. Thank you.
Councillor Rawls.
Sorry, I'll try to be brief. I do thank Councillor North for bringing this motion. As a Cabinet Member for Leisure, I'm happy to work with officers on the relevant proposed initiatives. But just to add that National Care Leavers Week is fast approaching, and that runs from the 25th of October to the 1st of November. And while more of a gesture than action, we've already arranged to light up the capital on Saturday the 28th of October, as with other communities around the country, in the relevant colour of blue for the Care Leaver Covenant National Programme to recognise this group in our community. Thanks.
Councillor Fletcher.
I hope I can allay Councillor Bevis's fears on this, in that the motion is calling on the leader and cabinet to instruct, another word might have been better, to ask perhaps, officers to explore these initiatives. So this is a motion to look into this further, and as Councillor Bevis says, it does need looking into further, because we've heard from Councillor Raby that this council is already doing quite a lot of things, and so the standard motion that we have before us that has been put across the county doesn't necessarily include the specific details of what would be appropriate for us to do to add to what we're already doing. So I'm very happy to support this motion, because it gives us the flexibility to go away and come back with a considered response.
Thank you, Councillor. Time is moving on. I'm going to take, Councillor Mercer.
Thank you, Chair. Colleagues will know that my professional background has been with children for the last 40 years, and I absolutely support the thrust of this motion. Care leavers are some of the most vulnerable young people in our society, and they deserve, because their circumstances are not their fault, they deserve the best support we can possibly give them. And indeed, we in the districts and boroughs should reflect those responsibilities of corporate parent, which perhaps county councillors are reminded of more often. But we absolutely should be taking community responsibility for these young people as they go from, a very protective environment into the wide world where things are more difficult. But Councillor Manton is also right in the sense that it's a bit rich, isn't it, for the county to retain specific statutory responsibility for support work for vulnerable young people in general, that having removed all support work, universal support work for young people, and still have a statutory responsibility specifically for care leavers and their support. And in fact, this particular item, which is the variability of availability of things like access to leisure services and Wi-Fi, is reflected in the most recent Ofsted inspection of the children's services of the county. So that's where this request comes from. Then that they should come to a district which has a budget a tenth of theirs and be asking for example, access to specific physical facilities in areas where perhaps they have had those facilities and have sold them off. And I'm thinking particularly of a building in my own ward, to which that has happened. However, I'm going to put my frustration aside, because this is more important and young people are more important. And my colleague over there said, let's see what we can do. And that's absolutely where I am.
Councillor Dennis.
Thank you. And with increasing numbers of children in care, I'm grateful for the opportunity to second this particular motion. I'm sure that most of you tonight, hopefully you will support this motion too. As a former corporate parent, as a corporate parent, along with other councillors in this room, and I'm also someone who's previously been a member of the children's panel at county. I've seen firsthand some of the issues that are faced by children as they transition to young adults in our society. And I don't want to sort of labour the point, because I think that we've all said quite a lot already, and I certainly don't want to bring issues with funding into this debate. All I will actually wanted to say was, there's an old proverb, it takes a village to raise a child, and I think it's really important we know forging a community of connected adults to nurture our children safely into adulthood. As a community of connected councillors, I would ask the same and ask you to support this motion this evening.
Thank you very much. Councillor Knoll, can you just sort of express your motion in one sentence? for people to understand exactly, because a lot's been said this evening, and I would just like to have it clarified.
Yeah, I'm just basically asking that we look at the case for providing a community base for care leavers in order to nurture and support. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I hope it answers it for everybody else who may well have wondered what we were actually going to be voting on. So, in view of that, I'm going to ask that...
Point of order? I think we're voting on the wording of the motion as before us.
So you're voting on the motion that's on the bottom of page 29. I just want to be absolutely clear, and everybody else probably does as well, at least I do. In that case, you are voting on the motion put at the bottom of page 29. All those in favour of the motion?
That's unanimous.
Are there any against?
Sorry, can we go back to the fours?
Can I have the fours? Anyone against? And any abstentions? One abstention. So the motion is carried. Thank you very much for that. I'm now going to invite Councillor Philip Circus to present his motion, and that's set out on page 30 in the agenda, and I'm going to ask Councillor Circus to propose.
Thank you, Chairman. 40 years ago, when I was a member of a local authority and Councillor Mercer was one of the officers, not a lot of people know that, it was the normal practice in that authority simply to say, as on the order paper. So, Chairman, what I'm going to say, I'm not going to read this out, you know what it says, and I'm going to say, as on the order paper. We all acknowledge No. Yes, that's right. That's right. And I'm saying as on the order paper, so I don't have to read it out. But we can do that with the question as well, if you like.
I think I prefer the shorter version. So.
Okay. We all acknowledge, Chairman, the importance of the airport. It would be foolish not to, because it is a significant employer. It is a significant contributor to the success and importance of local business, to the gap with Diamond and the general prosperity of the area. But that doesn't mean, Chairman, that further expansion is automatically a good thing. There is, as one of the candidates for the Conservative leadership, Kemi Badenoch, pointed out, a trade-off with every policy decision. And further expansion, I believe, will cause the trade-off balance to tip firmly against the public interest and therefore justify support for this motion. First of all, I would simply draw attention to the climate emergency. The last time we were in this chamber, we were saying how we must take the climate emergency seriously. It's hard to see how we would be doing that if we didn't support this motion and indicate that we do not look favourably on further expansion. And secondly, as we all are, I think, those who use the airport, very conscious of the inadequate infrastructure. And I particularly wanted to mention rail, because one of the things I discovered years ago, being a member of a overview and scrutiny working party, is that although Network Rail say that the rail network can cope with expansion and indeed with the existing demands on the airport, privately, as far as that working party was concerned, they said they couldn't. So there's a difference between what Network Rail say can be done publicly and what they say can be done privately. The reason, Chairman, for bringing this forward today is we have, as we all know, and is quite evident in front of us, a new council, a very new council. And so now it seems to me is the time to refresh our established position on this important issue. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Circus. Do you have a seconder for your motion? Councillor Liz Kitchen, thank you very much. Do you wish to speak now or later?
I'll speak later if it's necessary, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kitchen. We'll now debate the motion. When the debate is finished, Councillor Circus, as the mover of the motion, may then speak for a second time to exercise his right of reply. But does any member wish to speak on the motion? Yes, Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you, Councillor Circus, for bringing this motion. And I was glad to hear you mention the environment when you spoke. Your motion, excuse me, I have to remove my glasses. Your motion actually doesn't mention climate action and nature recovery. And so I would like to make an amendment, if I may, to reflect this council's stated commitment to those aims.
Do you have a seconder for your amendment?
Shall we distribute? Shall we distribute the? Shall I just read it out? Okay. The amended motion would then read: this council, whilst acknowledging the very significant contribution made to the local economy and the Gatwick Diamond area, expresses its opposition to further expansion of Gatwick Airport. Such expansion, the council believes, would be damaging to the environment, including impacts on noise, pollution and biodiversity, as well as to our climate and carbon reduction aims. And the council does not believe the existing infrastructure, particularly in terms of road and rail, is adequate for the needs of the airport. There is, in our view, no realistic prospect that further expansion could be matched by the necessary investment that would be needed in terms of further infrastructure. With the newly elected council, we have resolved to confirm our long-standing position on this important issue. I can go through, if I think some copies are being handed out, but if anybody would like me to, I can talk you through the change of wording. If not, shall I just... The key difference is obviously our stated aims regarding climate action and nature recovery.
Thank you. Councillor Croker, the secretary.
Yes, Chair, I am.
And do you want to speak? Well, you'll be able to speak now.
Chairman, does it help if I accept the amendment?
It would be wonderful.
Right. Right. Well, I don't get told that very often in this chamber, so... So, yes, I accept it, and my seconder accepts it.
Thank you, Councillor.
I thought I heard you.
Can I just say that yeah. I would accept Councillor Circus's comment on this. In that case, unless anybody has anything else, can I just read out the amendment again? Is that all right, Councillor Blackburn? Happy
yes, please, Chair. Thank you.
Because you're going to have to vote on it. So can I read it through again?
Point of order, Chair. Shouldn't we debate it?
Well, yes, but time is of the essence.
How much time do we have?
We have about 5 minutes. If you you'd like to say something, Councillor?
3 minutes.
You have 3 minutes.
If I may, Chair.
Yeah, of course you may.
Obviously, when I first read the substantive motion, my initial feeling was of deja vu, because it didn't really mention carbon emissions, as the Cabinet member has pointed out. I'm therefore very happy to support the amended motion, but I would like to emphasise the mess that this world is getting itself into at the moment in terms of carbon and the resulting increase in global average temperatures. However, as time is short, I'll leave that thought with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crowe. Can I just read out what you're going to vote on, and that is this. I don't know whether you've got copies of this. No, you have. Not everybody has, or has everyone got a copy? You've all got a copy. Well, in that case, I'm not going to read it. I'm not. So I'm just going to put it to you that you have before you an amendment which Councillor Circus has graciously agreed to, and therefore I would like to propose that you vote on that at this moment in time. Please, everyone who is in agreement, please show. Oh, this is the amendment, sorry.
That's 38 for.
And were there any against? Thank you. Any abstentions? Thank you. So the motion is the amendment, which became the substantive motion, is agreed. Thank you. Yeah, that's substantive. Right. Members' questions on notice under Rule 4A89. We have 30 minutes for these questions. We have received a question on notice from Councillor Philip Circus. And Councillor Circus, you have 2 minutes in which to ask Councillor J. Mercer, Cabinet Member for Environment, Health, Recycling and Waste, your question.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to say, as I said on the motion, as on the order paper, because everyone's got the chance to read it.
Councillor Mercer.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question, Councillor Circus. I think it's important for us to give straight answers, and the straight answer to the question is yes, but in the long run, and we may not end up having the capacity to do it, because you're asking us to look at it, and that's absolutely appropriate. As I think Councillor Circus will know, the Council has in the past considered the possibility of providing an MOT service and had discounted it on the basis that it would be cost prohibitive. We would need to invest about £50,000 in new equipment, employ a qualified MOT inspector and also additional administrative resource to coordinate the service. It's never been considered that this would deliver a satisfactory financial return. Space is also quite tight in the depot, and as such a service would probably take out one of our bays for a significant period each year, and that would impact on our ability to maintain the existing council fleet. Having said that, we're always keen to look at opportunities to maximise the use of our assets and generate income. We're currently working on a plan to require all Horsham District Councils licensed taxis to have their 6 monthly vehicle safety checks undertaken by the mechanics at the depot. This would deliver a financial return, and if we consider there could be opportunities to further expand this service, we would certainly investigate the costs and the potential income. On top of that, in the medium to long term, we're also aware that we will probably have to expand our fleet to take account, for example, of any new collection responsibilities, and therefore we may need to look at depot capacity in the future. So the answer is, will we look at it? Yes, we will look at it, but unfortunately right now it's not something we can do.
Councillor Circus, you have a supplementary question.
Yes, would the Cabinet member be willing, as part of looking at this issue, to talk to other local authorities, including Reigate and Banstead, if they are still operating this scheme, to see what their experience is? And will he confirm that in the long run, is not another way of saying the issue's being kicked into the long grass? Thank you, Chairman.
Sorry, Chairman. Of course, always happy to look at experience elsewhere and good practice elsewhere and learn from it. And Reigate and Banstead are relatively near. I'm happy to go and talk that through with them. I'm not seeking to kick it into the long grass, Councillor Circus. I'm simply seeking to say that it depends on the circumstances and the financial benefits. And therefore, I can't say now, yes, we will, or no, we won't.
Councillor Circus, do you want to make a final statement?
I don't think I need to. I'd just like to thank the Cabinet member for his responses. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There is a second question from Councillor Claudia Fisher. Claudia Fisher, you have 2 minutes in which to ask Councillor John Milne, Cabinet Member for Planning and Infrastructure, your question.
Thank you, Chair. It won't take that long, I can assure you. Will the current administration reassure members that the quality of the build in the new local plan will be consistent with the climate action strategy for HDC?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Fisher. I can confirm that the preparation of the local plan is indeed taking the Council's climate action strategy into account. In preparing the plan, officers in strategic planning have worked very closely with the Environmental Coordination Manager. This has included joint work on the Council's climate change evidence base and close collaboration during policy development to ensure that local plan policies reflect our wider corporate objectives on climate change. The local plan policies remain a work in progress, although of course they will come before you very soon. However, I can say in advance that it's envisaged that they will include net zero related requirements in terms of both energy use and design and construction methods. They will also seek to ensure that any development that comes forward is able to adapt to and cope with the climate changes we're already observing. In addition, other policies, such as those regarding biodiversity, will help deliver opportunities for carbon sequestration, as well as addressing the ecological emergency we're all facing. It's important to say that the local plan policies represent a significant step forward in ensuring that new developments are built to the highest possible environmental standards. But at the same time, we're having to work in the context of continually moving targets and deadlines from the government. It's very difficult to know when important legislation will be enacted, or if it will be enacted, such as the future home standard for eco-building, which in theory should apply from 2025. This continues to cause redrafting even at this late stage. Beyond this local plan, there will be more work that strategic planning and other council officers will need to undertake to ensure that climate change measures are integrated into new developments. In particular, it's our intention to follow the approach set by Cornwall County Council in requiring developments to go above and beyond the government's future home standard. And if we succeed in this, it will be one of the best, most exemplary schemes in the country. Because this requires us to prepare a significant evidence base via a process that could take 12 to 18 months, we will look to bring it in after this local plan is approved in the form of a future planning policy document together with an SPD, or supplementary planning document. This assumes, of course, that the government doesn't change the rules of SPDs as it threatens to do so, or indeed other vital policy matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Milne. Councillor Fisher, another question? Supplementary.
I do, thank you. Thank you for your thoughtful reply, Councillor Milne, that's very helpful. I was pleased to see that there are some aspects of build quality mentioned in the council plan and a commitment to setting higher environmental standards, including net zero buildings, green gaps and addressing water neutrality. I'd like to put a request in to administration that is open to listening and growing and learning, is if net zero living could be added to that list. And that in advance of the local plan building specifications being set as you described, if all members could have a briefing on the building specification plan, please, as I'm sure many of us would like to know the details, for example, such as whether solar PV panels, heat pumps, and sufficient insulation will be standard requirements.
Yes, thank you. Net zero living, I'm not sure that would entirely be a local plan matter, but yes, we can talk about that separately. I want to try and get a draft of this part of the local plan to members in advance of the actual meeting of December 11th, or it's published beforehand. So it's not ready yet, I can't do it yet, but I do hope to circulate it as soon as is practically possible, so that you have a chance to input it. But there should be a certain amount we could tell you straight away.
Thank you very much for your response. It's very reassuring to hear that this administration is resolute in its commitment to tackling the climate and biodiversity crises with actions, not just words. We look forward to hearing more about your plans, and please know the Green Group is here to support in any way we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor. Is there any urgent business? I don't think so. There is no urgent business, therefore I declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much for putting up with my vagaries of counting, and I look forward to the next meeting.